Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are, and namaste to all. My name is Kanchan Banerjee. I am in Boston. Welcome to you all to this webinar. Before we get started, I wanted to say a few words about our institute. We have started a few years back, the Boston Center of Excellence for Health and Human Development. And our goal is to bring together institutes and experts from all over the world to come and work on research and promotion of yoga and Ayurveda and make it part of our mainstream healthcare system. And we have been organizing many events, conferences, seminars, and we have taken up a few projects, research projects lately. And Dr. Frawley has been a guide and inspiration for us for many years, and he has also honored us to be in the Board of Trustees of the Boston Center of Education. So without further delay, I would like to request Hemanti Banerjee, who is also the Board of Trustees, part of the board of Boston Center, and an IT specialist and a yoga teacher as well. She's going to briefly introduce our honored guest today, Dr. Frawley. Hemanti.
Namaskar. Good morning, good evening. My name is Hemanti Banerjee. It is my great honor and privilege to introduce Dr. Frawley. He is also known as Vamadeva Sastry. He is the only teacher from the West, is known as Vedacharya. He is the founder of American Institute of Vedic Studies. He has written over 50 books on Vedic sciences, including yoga, Ayurveda, astrology, and on social and civilizational issues. Indian president has conferred him with India's third highest civilian honor called the Padma Bhushan in 2015. He and his wife, Yogini Sambhavi Devi, live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Let's welcome Dr. Frawley.
Namaste, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Are we on? Is the webcam coming up? Here we go. Here we go. Namaste, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Welcome to all of you from throughout the world, wherever you may be on this wonderful day. It is a beautiful spring morning here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, in the mountains. I know it is different for you wherever you may be. And I'm very happy to see such important interest in these wonderful subjects. First of all, I want to thank Kanchan and Hemanti Banerjee and the Boston Center of Excellence for promoting yoga, Ayurveda, Vedic knowledge, and a whole range of projects, educational dialogue, work with the Harvard Medical School, and many other organizations that continues to expand over the field of time. And we wish them the best in the expansion of their work and encourage everyone to join them. As they have said, I am Dr. David Frawley, also known as Pandit Vamdev Sastry. I've been working in the field of Vedic knowledge, including yoga, Ayurveda, Jyotish, Vedanta, Vedic studies, Hindu Dharma for several decades now. And we've worked on many levels with schools, with publications, with conferences. And we are very happy to see that this Vedic knowledge is expanding and moving globally and has now become a major influence on the higher mind of humanity. We see particularly how yoga on all levels and yoga gurus have spread worldwide since Swami Vivekananda in 1893, already more than a century ago. And also how Ayurveda is becoming more well-known on all levels, but particularly as mind, body, and yogic form of medicine. And we see many temples, many ashrams, many institutions now, as Hindus have moved all over the world, and if many people have taken up different aspects of yoga, meditation, and the higher teachings coming out of India and its great dharmic traditions. So what we are going to do today is have an exploration of yoga and Ayurveda, and in the context of course, the civilizational and our important health issues today. We will begin, I will talk for a certain period of time, and on top of that, we will have an additional almost equal time for questions relative to what you find as important and important or significant aspects in this very broad field of knowing. So first of all, let's begin with a short meditation. It's always very important that we center our awareness before we go forward with any major task and before we go forward with any educational venture. So close your eyes and draw your awareness within. You can draw your awareness from the most distant horizon, the vast reaches of this universe that extends beyond time and space. Draw that cosmic sense of self into your inner being and move into the core of your being, the spiritual heart, and hold your attention, your awareness, your focus there. In the Vedic thought, the spiritual heart is the source of Atma, the inner self, the higher awareness, the intuitive knowing, the inner Agni, or inner flame that holds our true being and consciousness, our immortal soul through its many births in this karmic realm, the many lives, the many levels of existence that we have. Come into contact with your inner being. Draw in the energy of the entire universe, inhaling Om into the center of the heart, silently repeating it. And once you have done that, energize the spiritual heart, exhaling the mantra Hrim, Hrim, which is the bija of the spiritual heart. Om, Hrim, Om, Hrim, Om, Hrim. Connecting the entire universe to the core of your being, recognizing that the entire universe dwells within you, and that all potentials are there for you, whether of learning, whether of healing, whether of simply transcending, if you can return to that inner core of your being that is the source of mind, prana, all that we are, all that exists. So you can open your eyes again. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Let us all come together in this learning of the higher knowledge. Now, when we talk about things like yoga and Ayurveda, It's first of all very important to define them. There are many ideas out there, many different views, and sometimes a great deal of misunderstanding. And unless we understand these properly, then we are not going to be able to apply them in the right or the full manner. So let us begin with yoga. What is yoga? And in the work we do, we like to look back to the yoga tradition, sometimes what is called classical yoga, rooted in Yoga Sutras, but also looking back to Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Yoga Shastras, Vedic teachings. So Mahabharata, the yoga tradition is very large. Yoga Sutras is the key text for understanding it, but it is one of many. It is a compilation that takes essential principles of the eternal yoga and brings it forth to us. And what we discovered there, first of all, is that yoga is basically primarily about the mastery of the mind. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is the mastery of or understanding or transcendence of the movements, fluctuations, activities, or disturbances of the mind. This then leads us to, in yogic thought, the realization, tadadrashta swarupe avasthanam, the abidance in the state of the seer, the Purusha, or the Atman, our inner self that transcends body and mind. This is the classical definition of yoga, and it's mirrored in the various different yogic texts, and it's one that we should always bear in mind. In other words, yoga is about mastering our minds so we can go or transcend the mind to a higher state of consciousness. Now, in this context, body and mind are related. So it's not possible to master the mind without at least harmonizing and purifying the body. There is also a link between body and mind, which is prana, the life force, the healing energy, the vital force, ultimately the immortal life energy of consciousness. And so yoga also works very much with the prana. So out of that core understanding of mastering the mind, yoga develops various practices, eventually expanding into the 8 limbs of yoga, which are known to all of you, including physical factors of asana that are very much emphasized today, energetic practices of pranayama, sensory practices, and turning the awareness within of pratyahara, concentration factors of dharana, developing power of attention, very important. Dhyana, meditation, the key practice of yoga is meditation. And absorption of the mind, unitary consciousness, or what is called the samadhi. In fact, yoga is traditionally defined not only as mastery of the mind, but as the samadhi. And yoga rests upon various dharmic principles of right living, like ahimsa, truthfulness, purity, Ishvara, pranidhana, yamas, niyamas. We won't go into them here, but they form the dharmic foundation, the right living that is necessary for the practice of yoga. Yoga is a lifestyle practice in that way. Then what is Ayurveda? Ayurveda is generally known as a healing practice, a medicine for our whatever ails us. But Ayurveda is a very special system of medicine. First, it is the yogic system of medicine. It arises out of Sankhya Yoga philosophy, taking these principles of yoga, which we have behind Yoga Sutras, and applying them in the direction of health and well-being. And for that, Ayurveda has its study of the body, its understanding of doshas of Vata, Pitta, Kapha, the constitutional and biological humors, understanding of sense organs, motor organs, internal organs, and also the tissues of the body, and then understanding the disease process that arises from the imbalances in our energy and from the wrong use of awareness. Ayurveda has two main causes of disease. The first is the prajna parada, which essentially means wrong judgment, failure of wisdom, failure of proper life experience, and lack of inner knowing or inner intelligence. Second, Ayurveda has as a cause of disease the wrong use of the senses, whether excess, deficient, irregular, or wrong. So these are the foundation of Ayurveda, but Ayurveda defines life not just simply as physical well-being, but Ayurveda describes life as, in the highest sense, as longevity, but also the proper alignment of body, prana, mind, senses, and inner self or consciousness. So Ayurveda also takes us in the direction of yoga as well. So we look at the two together, yoga as the spiritual meditational tradition, the way of self-realization and self-knowing, and Ayurveda as its application in terms of self-healing. So Ayurveda is not just about treatment of disease that is at a certain level, it's also about principles of right living, right behavior, daily practices, seasonal practices, stage of life practices, right diet, right exercise, right use of the senses, right use of our motor organs, and then extending into herbs, massage, special clinical treatments for disease, special practices of cleansing like panchakarma, and special practices of rejuvenation or the rasayana. So in the Vedic view, we are looking at the human being in a very different way than we are in modern medicine. We look at the human being as threefold, as body, mind, and consciousness. Body being, of course, the physical body and all that goes with it, but the physical body as an energetic system, energy and information, and even consciousness at a very subtle level, not just simply structure or chemistry. So the three doshas of Vata, Pitta, Kapha are energetic forces, not necessarily structural forces or tissues, although they have their impact at that specific level. Body corresponds the outer vehicle of the inner self or consciousness. Mind is the inner vehicle, or we call antakarana, of the inner self or consciousness. Mind and body are interrelated. Mind and body are organically connected, not only with each other, but also with the external world and the entire environment and realm of nature. And the mind has its functions, organic functions, but even functions much like a computer. The mind has its capacity of naming, calculating, it has its emotions, it has its reasoning ability, it has its memory bank, it has its volition, and it has its power of attention, focus, and discernment. These are described very clearly relative to functions like chitta, buddhi, manas, ahankara. We won't discuss those in detail here. And we also have a theory of five koshas or layers of the human being from the physical body to an inner karmic essence, extending to a higher self of pure consciousness, or the Atman or Purusha, as we have said. So we are essentially pure consciousness, embodied in body and mind. And we tend to get lost in the activities of the body and mind and forget our inner nature or inner awareness. So the first thing to realize in yoga and Ayurveda is consciousness is the ultimate healing force, cultivating consciousness, giving consciousness, being aware, being observant, having the attitude of the witness. This is the foundation of the yogic meditation overall, and inquiring into our inner self. Mainly we are lost, or we get caught in the external world quite naturally, as there are so many demands and expectations there. But we should not lose track of the inner core of our being, because that is the ultimate healing and transformative force. So we need to know how to move within. We move from the body to the prana and discover our pranic energy and its healing powers. We move from the prana through the senses. We also discover inner senses, inner ways of seeing and hearing. We also move into inner layers of the mind, deeper factors of perception, creativity, and knowing that takes us beyond ordinary time and space, and coming to the sense of our true self. Each one of us has a sense of immortal being, eternal being, undying consciousness. We all have a seeking within us to go beyond all death and sorrow, and that is what we can discover if we learn how to turn within. This knowledge of the inner self, as described in detail, is the system of Vedanta, which is also the linking factor of yoga and Ayurveda. So yoga and Ayurveda form a complete system of wellness for body, mind, and consciousness, a complete system of healing. They address specific physical disorders, whether arising from the doshas or various pathologies. They also address psychological disorders or emotional unhappiness, arising not only through the doshas, but also through excesses of the gunas of rajas and tamas, the forces of agitation and inertia at the level of the mind. So the three dosha, the three guna theory, and also understanding our karmas. Each one of us has certain unique karmas in life that we need to know and we need to learn how to address. And yoga and Ayurveda teach us the proper karmic management of our lives. Now, we have mentioned here in this program also the idea of integrative medicine. And this is also an idea that is coming out in many forms. On one level, when people speak of integrative medicine, they speak of integrating all the different medical modalities that are out there. For example, having a clinic that may offer Ayurveda, Chinese medicine, chiropractic, different modalities of modern medicine, massage, nutrition, and so forth, trying to bring in the best that every system of medicine has. That is certainly very important. It's also important that various systems of medicine dialogue, particularly traditional natural systems of medicine and modern chemical and surgical systems of medicine. Each medical system does have certain specific value and certain unique powers and unique capacities. But some of these systems of medicine are more expansive than others. For example, Ayurveda is a complete system of medicine in terms of internal and external medicine, in terms of right living, in terms of the disease process, diagnosis for body and mind. Yoga is actually an adjunct of Ayurveda as a therapy for body and mind, but actually more as a meditation therapy for the mind. Although the asana pranayama also have important therapeutic abilities and capacities relative to the body also. But there is no independent yogic system of medicine apart from Ayurveda in terms of the theory of the human being, disease theory, diagnosis, and treatment. Traditional yogic texts always refer to Ayurvedic factors of doshas and also Agni, digestive fire, and other forms of the inner fire. and other aspects of the Vedic thought. And yoga and Ayurveda also share the understanding of the mind and the pranic factor. And Ayurveda emphasizes yoga for developing sattva vijaya therapy, because the increase of sattva guna is the key factor for psychological healing and also aids in physical healing. And that is increasing the calm, the purity, the clarity, the virtue, positive emotions, healing energies in the body and the mind. And that is also one reason that we often emphasize the vegetarian diet, at least during certain practices, because this helps with the sattva guna. So balancing the doshas, increasing sattva guna, harmonizing the mind, and going beyond the mind to our deeper consciousness is the key background of yoga, Ayurveda, Vedanta, and Vedic knowledge. So in terms of integrative medicine, we also talk about integrating the human being, integrating body, mind, and consciousness, or even more specifically, the body, the sense organs, the motor organs, the pranas, the different functions of the mind, and our higher self, bringing them into alignment and harmony. It's great to align the spine and to align physical factors, but it's also important to align physical factors with psychological and spiritual factors as well. So that is the integrative medicine of the Vedic system, or the integral healing of our nature, all the 5 koshas, all the 3 bodies, all the different aspects of our nature. And that is what we like to address. And in the context, we also have to address the relationship of the human being with the environment. We cannot be healthy and happy if our natural environment is out of balance and being destroyed. The integration of the individual human being with society. We cannot be happy or healthy as an individual if there is happiness, if there's unhappiness and trauma and suffering in our family, in our friends, or rampant in our society, or various forms of imbalance in the social order. And ultimately, integrating ourselves with the greater universe of consciousness, because that is the ultimate factor. The more we have a unity of awareness, the more we have a power of healing. Love is the ultimate power of healing, a love that is the unity between human beings, not just attraction or attachment between one human being and another. And yet we need to have specific health problems for specific issues. There are dietary problems that need to be addressed with the diet. There are postural problems that need to be addressed with exercise. There are various organic imbalances. And here then, I want to touch upon briefly the issues, the problems of modern health and modern medicine today. Modern medicine has made extraordinary gains. In the surgical field, it has incredible wonders that it has done. Surgery was traditionally part of the Ayurveda, but is since then, Ayurveda has let that go because modern medicine has developed it very well. Now, I don't mean there aren't some instances where surgery might be overdone, but overall it has developed in a very positive way. The other development we see, not only in the modern medicine, but also in our culture as a whole, is the greater emphasis on drugs, chemical drug-based medicine, looking at diseases as either caused by external pathogens or by chemical imbalances in the body, which may be organic in the digestive system, circulatory system, respiratory system, and so forth, extending to chemical imbalances in the brain. In fact, today we have this essentially thing going on where we are treating the imbalances of the brain and the psychology basically through drugs and chemistry. And here we actually see a movement away from a psychological medicine, although that still exists, to a drug-based psychological or psychiatric medicine. In yoga and Ayurveda, for treating the mind, we do have very special herbs, dietary, and oils, massage practices that are done, including things like the Shirodhara or oil drip to the head. But we also have the whole range of yogic practices, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, concentration, mantra, and meditation. So what we're having in the modern world, as we've controlled a lot of the outer epidemic diseases, at least for now, there's the danger of these epidemics coming up again in the future, because we have, with our antibiotics, we may be also breeding more powerful forms of pathogens for the future. But for the most part now, people are dealing more with the psychological disorders. And in my specific work, we've been emphasizing that more: yoga and Ayurveda psychology, Ayurveda and the mind, and understanding also how to cultivate and develop the mind properly, proper education. Now, we are at a very critical, dangerous, and transformative phase of human civilization today. On one hand, we have a tremendous development of science and technology, particularly information technology and social media. We are coming into communication together all over the world in a way that has no parallel in decades or centuries before. Even those of us who have lived a few years are seeing major changes. In the case of my life, born in 1950, we have seen extraordinary changes, particularly as an author, first writing books on typewriters, and now coming to a phase of where books are becoming obsolete, or we're having direct communication via various internet, digital, and social media devices. Now, as our society is changing, it's also becoming more urban, more technological at various levels. There is an increasing disharmony and disconnection from the world of nature. We seldom are in a simply natural environment. We're often bombarded by electronic influences. In fact, most of us are wired up most of the day or a lot of the day. And I won't tell you that I'm not, or that I don't work on a computer, or that I don't do online courses or work with the social media. We certainly do that. And we see that all of us were being bombarded by more stimulation. And it extends not only from the work we may be doing or the social media, entertainment, music, and so forth, but we're essentially creating a society where people are being progressively addicted to, but connected to, restructured according to electronic and media influences, so that we are no longer able to harmonize ourselves with the world of nature. It becomes difficult. Even for children today, they're living in their little cell phones. It's hard for them to go out and just be in the expanse of nature. But we are drawing in prana and energy through our senses. Nature gives us that. Electronic influences do not. So in other words, we are changing the nature of the human mind, also the human society, and even the human nervous system with all these different electronic influences. And it is changing our health situation. So we have new problems to deal with that are largely emotional and psychological. For example, we have this very extensive epidemic of depression. And depression has a very simple cause, which is stimulation or overstimulation or continued stimulation, so that we cease to be creative and energetic inside of ourselves. We rely upon the stimuli. Once the stimuli is withdrawn, we feel depressed, or once we get used to it and it no longer has the same effect, we get depressed. And also being disjoined from the healing powers of nature, and also progressively living alone. Half the Americans above the age of 50, I believe, are living alone. That there isn't the prana or the connection with other people that is going on. We also have a whole range of problems that are coming up with the power of attention, because external stimulation causes us to lose our internal power of attention. Stimuli from the media may be less than 1 second. And so our attention span, what yoga calls dharana or dharana shakti, is very weak. And when that occurs, we cannot make good judgments. We cannot see clearly. We cannot be independent in our original in our thoughts. We get carried away by what the latest influence is, which can get us in a perpetual state of disturbance. So all these problems of awareness, attention deficit, lack of clarity, and also going along with this stress, because we are so pushed by the technological forces from the outer world and the demands of society that we lose the ability to cope with all these external forces coming at us at once. So this becomes a very challenging circumstance, and one in which different problems, different diseases, different psychological, emotional issues are coming up. And we have a weakening of psychological immunity, where it's difficult for us to handle difficulties, stress, ups and downs from the external world. And we also have a weakening of physical immunity, or what is called the ojas in the Ayurvedic and yogic thought. So we can also easily come down with physical diseases, particularly as we get older. And now we're seeing signs that longevity, or at least health in old age, is going down in our society. Now, in this context, there are changes in modern medicine that link us with the traditional medicines, recognition of natural healing overall, the idea of behavioral medicine, or that behavior affects who we are. In fact, Ayurveda and yoga teach us that how we live and what we do every day, including how we think, our diet, how we use our senses, how we exercise, these are the most important factors in our health and well-being, not just simply pathogens or exposure to external disturbing factors. And then there's been the whole study of genetics that has gone on. And it was originally thought that we could basically predict a person's health or well-being simply by understanding their DNA. DNA is simply potentials, and modern epigenetics has also realized that the state of our digestive system, even the flora in the gut, is depending upon and showing us what genes may get activated. But actually, it's our behavior as a whole that teaches us how or what our particular genetic predispositions will be manifest. So a genetic predisposition may only be 10 or 20% factor. It can be countered by our behavioral changes. But the Vedic and the yogic thought also brings in the idea of karma and samskaras. And now we're seeing that even generationally, animals can be affected in the course of 2 or 3 generations. For example, they found that elephants in, I think it's probably Myanmar, I don't remember the exact country, Thailand, they're no longer growing tusks because that they're being killed for their tusks. So these are changes that are much quicker than simply genetics. And we also see how, for example, the younger generation can pick up the informational technology much quicker, almost is that there is an evolution or growth of the collective mind, or karmic and samskaric changes that are going on, a subtle mind influence that is also affecting us in a very major way. In other words, we have much more latitude with our health and our well-being, particularly at a psychological level, than we did in the past. Now, modern medicine is aiming at the drugs to deal with the disorders, although there is as yet no recognition of an overlying prana or vital force for the body as a whole. There's also no recognition of mind as apart from the body, consciousness apart from the mind, or that there is something in the human being that transcends all these physical chemical equations. So the modern medicine is developing a lot of new drugs to treat depression, to treat all these problems of the mind, immunity, and different things. I'm not going to say they're wrong or they don't have their usage, but the point we like to make through yoga and Ayurveda, that these things should be addressed primarily through natural healing and our behavioral factors and our behavioral medicine, which is what yoga and Ayurveda offer superlatively. But on top of that, yoga and Ayurveda offer many things, understanding our individual constitution. Constitutional medicine is best developed in yoga and Ayurveda than in probably any other system, from the three doshas of Vata, Pitta, Kapha to all their variations, all the different typologies, aspects of the mind relative to the gunas, and so forth. So on, along with the whole array of general behavioral principles and dharmic living, the yoga and Ayurveda offers us quite a lot through extensive approaches of diet and dietary changes. There's so much that could be discussed there. I'm not going to address specific diets, whether it's gluten-free or anything else, but there are many important issues there. Ayurveda has a tremendous herbal repertoire, not only of herbal pills and powders, but special jams, jellies, ferments, resins, whole range of products, the largest variety of herbal pharmaceutical products of any medical system in the world, with very specific applications, oils, ghees, so many factors there, including many different levels of application, from treating disease to proper living to promoting longevity and rejuvenation. Ayurveda has its massage, its panchakarma, its rejuvenation therapies, and a whole range of specific practices for specific diseases, including very powerful medicines and clinical treatments for serious type diseases. But we should say it is so far in the Western world, the wellness aspect of Ayurveda that is available. The clinical aspect is harder to bring in because of the legal factors involved as a system of medicine, but that is also slowly coming within for all of us to be able to experience. So there are Ayurvedic clinics and centers and Ayurvedic practices available at ashrams and natural healing centers and integrative medicine centers also throughout the world. And we have the full range of yogic applications. Yoga asana can work wonders, but pranayama is even more important because it gives us the primary prana or life energy and helps balance the doshas and balance our energies directly. Yoga and Ayurveda have extensive sensory therapies like aromatherapy, color therapy, different aspects of sound therapy that also help us balance our energies, turn within, and access higher pranic forces. And more specifically, there are the practices of mantra, which have tremendous healing powers for the body and mind, different forms, techniques, and methods and approaches of meditation. If we can bring the mind back to its basic silent state, the mind naturally heals itself. And through that, it can also help heal the body. So tremendous resources are there and different forms of guidance that can be specifically therapeutic or educational making our lives better, and helping us gain greater creativity as in artistic pursuits, gain greater discernment even in our business and job activity, but also help us understand the need for transcendence. Even if we achieve all the things we can in the outer world, we will not be happy because our soul always demands transcendence. We may seek a temporary transcendence through sensory factors, through drugs, through many other things, but eventually we can only find that turning within. So yoga and Ayurveda teach us how to manage our brain chemistry and our energies overall, and they can help us reduce our dependency on the drug-based medicines, and they can help us counter the side effects of our overly stimulated digital electronic way of life. So it's very important that we integrate yoga and Ayurveda into our lifestyle, and that first thing in the morning we have some practice of yoga, mantra, meditation, pranayama to get our energies moving properly. And also in the evening, that at least a few hours before sleep, we turn all the media off and we move into a state of pranayama, meditation, calming, and turning within and connecting with our inner being or higher self, letting the stress and tension go in both the body and the mind, and moving into these internal and spiritual sources of healing and transformation, so that our everyday is a journey in consciousness, is a meditative journey in awareness from the inner world to the outer world to the inner world, or maintaining an inner awareness even when we are active in the outer world. When we are active in the outer world, we can still hold our attention within. We can still have an attitude of detachment. We can still have a connection to our prana, and also we can have a connection with the world of nature. We have to always remember we are organic beings, and we cannot have health and well-being if we are apart from the world of nature. Nature is not just an inert force. Nature has a prana, nature has a consciousness and an intelligence. The consciousness, the self, the spirit behind nature is the same consciousness, self, and spirit that is within us in our own inner being. So besides our social being, which is very important, we also have that cosmic being that we should address. And it's also our purpose and our need in the society to bring a higher awareness, a higher healing force, a higher creativity into humanity. Technology is great. It helps us do so many things, but we should also know how to turn the technology off, and also how to use it in a positive way, and access the inner technology of awareness, which is what we find in the yoga and Ayurveda, how we can access and use our free time that technology should give us to develop or explore the science of consciousness through meditation, not just simply through drugs, not just simply through studying brain waves. These things have their place and teach us certain things. And the chemistry of the brain is important, and the waves of the brain are important, but we have an inner consciousness beyond the mind and beyond the body. So recognizing our inner self is the basis of all these Vedic therapies and the ultimate goal of yoga overall. So yoga and Ayurveda brings us this tremendous behavioral medicine, doshas, gunas, karmas, right diet, right exercise, daily, seasonal regimens, all of it There is so much that you can do there, so much that you can explore, and so much that can help you even at a simple level. So learning that proper Ayurvedic lifestyle and Ayurvedic way of being, yogic way of being, pursuit of higher consciousness is extremely important. And bringing back a yogic and Ayurvedic view into psychology, where we're no longer just simply examining emotions or examining brain chemistry, but where we're cultivating higher awareness, control of the mind, detachment, observation, discernment. In other words, making the mind better, not just simply examining or going through the particular pathologies that may be going on emotionally. And then ultimately recognizing that in our true self or higher being, we transcend all physical and psychological maladies. We can also help improve them or harmonize or change them. Our inner being is Satchit Ananda, being, consciousness, bliss. It has a tremendous power of healing. It also has a tremendous power of contentment within its own nature. Human evolution of society and even evolution of the body should take us to this deeper evolution of consciousness that we explore within through yoga and meditation. Technology and information should help us outwardly, so we have more space, we have more power, we have more capacity to reach these higher levels of awareness in which we can permanently go beyond death and sorrow and discover the Ananda, the supreme bliss that pervades everything, and reintegrate, discover that unity of self, nature, society, and the greater universe overall. And on this basis, the Yoga and Ayurveda connect us to the greater field of what we also called Vedic education and Vedic counseling. And this brings in bringing spiritual, Vedic, and yogic principles into all aspects of our life, including our work, our relationships, including our dharma, what we're doing in the society, and our entire purpose. So as we take this integral approach, we also bring an integral approach to the knowledge, which is understanding relevance of physical healing, psychological healing, greater well-being, balance of the society, integration with nature, ecology, preserving our cultural and civilizational heritage, which includes our natural healing systems. That is, of course, also under siege with this movement of technology. But as we look to the coming century, there is tremendous opportunity and tremendous challenges. And we definitely need to overhaul our medical system, not necessarily eliminating anything, but bringing in much more the natural, the spiritual, the yogic, the counseling, the behavioral, these epigenetic aspects of healing, karmic healing, all of this. Otherwise, our medical system will not address our true needs. And as it gets more caught up in drugs, it will be progressively expensive and cause various side effects and addictions, which we can already see. And also bringing into our psychology, which we are doing to some degree at least, positive tools of mindfulness, meditation, mantra, changing our awareness rather than just simply getting caught in the emotional problems and traumas we have from the past, and bringing an educational model into our society overall, where we're bringing yoga and Ayurveda into the educational system, or at least natural healing, natural exercises, concentration, meditation, because learning is not just about being able to manipulate technology, nor is it about simply learning or memorizing information. We need to cultivate awareness, attention, creativity, but this requires that we cultivate our inner being and turn our awareness within. We cannot educate people simply by stimulating them on the outside. We have to help them awaken their own inner energy and their own inner aspiration to something more, higher ideals, higher awareness, and understanding and unfolding our greater and more expansive human potential. As we look to the future and jobs disappear and technology takes over our activities, we also need a way of using our awareness to explore the world of nature, to look within, to develop greater artistic and healing capacities, rather than to just simply allow ourselves to become dependent upon the technology or dependent upon the external world to take care of us. We need a new awakening of our human and our cosmic spirit. So what I have tried to do is give you an overview of yoga and Ayurveda, their greater connections, their relevance, particularly at psychological and spiritual levels, certain challenges in society today, certain movements towards the future that we need to consider. And I know many of us are asking certain questions, and many people are also feeling, well, you know, how do I do this? How do I come in touch with this? Ayurveda is hardly recognized anywhere. These are growing disciplines. They are expanding. They've expanded quite a bit in the few decades that I've been able to see them. They will expand more, but they need more attention, more people studying and working with them. Of course, there's more work going on the India side, but there's also very creative work and changes going on in the West. And the type of Ayurvedic movement and yoga movements we see in the United States, we see all over the world, whether it's Russia, China, South America, Africa, even to some extent in the Middle East, of course, Europe and Russia. And of course, many of you are also thinking about yoga. You do asana, you see how asana improves your health. That is very good, but it's also very good to bring in the Ayurveda. Yoga teachers should learn Ayurveda relative to the theory of disease, broader aspects of treatment, how doshas work, how pranas work, and also therapeutic applications, not simply of the asana, but of the pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, meditation, mantra, and yogic healing not only for the body, but yogic healing for the mind. Yoga is primarily a psychology as per Yoga Sutras. Yoga Sutras Klesha model is one of the most important disease theories or sorrow theories relative to the mind. So yoga teachers should look into expanding their awareness into the field of Ayurveda. And then I always like to emphasize that we need to bring Vedanta back into yoga and Ayurveda. Yoga talks about the unity of the individual self with the universal self. Ayurveda talks about aligning the individual human being down to the physical level with the universal being and the higher self. Vedanta has the philosophy, the psychology taught in detail, the different levels, functions, aspects of the mind, workings of the three gunas, working of the three bodies, the five sheaths, the karmas, so that we can move into meditation practices, ways of self-inquiry, self-examination, introspection to unfold our inner being and to connect to that inner consciousness so that we can bring in that higher consciousness aligned with the body and the mind and go beyond simply physical limitations and physical reality to mental creativity and realms of the mind, and even beyond the mind to realms of meditation and pure consciousness and higher awareness. This has always been the focus of the Dharmic systems coming out of India, Hindu, Buddhist, Jain, Sikh. So many factors have come in there. These teachings also should be brought in line. So with that, I would like to open the field for questions, and I will try to address them as succinctly as I can. Thank you, Kanchan.
Well, we must be very grateful and thankful to you for this wonderful, enlightening discussion today. For the audience, those of you who have joined late, we have, we could have, if it was open in a hall, we could have given a standing ovation to you, Vamadeva Sastry ji. But in absence of that, we simply say namaste and dhanyavad. Those of you joined late, people from 26 countries are on, over 250 people from all over the world. I'm really amazed how greatly your work is appreciated throughout the world, from Albania, Australia, Brazil, Chile, Singapore, China. I'm amazed how many countries, people from how many countries, from Malaysia, Indonesia, Mexico, Brazil, Oman, Singapore, South Africa, Taiwan, Spain, and of course UK, and USA and India. So I hope you all had a very enlightening session today with Vamadeva ji, and I should share with you about my experience with him. I first time met with him in 1993 when we were celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Chicago World Parliament of Religions, this well-known address by Swami Vivekananda. As Vamadeva ji mentioned, Swami Vivekananda in 1893 introduced yoga to the West, especially in the United States. And we were celebrating the 100th anniversary of that event. And I met Vamadeva ji at that time. And I have many of my ideas, my lifestyle have been influenced by his thoughts and ideas. So I just wanted to share that with you. And then this Boston Center of Excellence that we have started, it is also inspired by Swami Vivekananda. And we are making great progress, as he has mentioned, that we need to do more research, more, the legal areas we need to work on. So many collaborators from around the world have joined hands with Boston Center of Excellence. And you can see more information on the BoCE.org website. And if you want to partner with us, you are welcome. And I just want to mention a few of our partners. There are about 200 experts from both modern medicine as well as yoga and Ayurveda and other natural healing systems. They have joined hands with us. And so many different institutes have joined hands with us, including Dr. Frawley's American Institute of Vedic Studies, several departments at Harvard Medical School, Benson Handy Mind Body Institute, Osher Center, and from Institute of Advanced Sciences in Boston, MIT Media Lab and D Lab, University of Massachusetts, University of South Florida, and many such institutes throughout the world. Swami Vivekananda Yoga Anusandhan Sanstha is Vyasa in India, the premier yoga institute, and JNU Jawaharlal Nehru University recently joined hands with us. So there is a huge scope of collaboration and research for us to do in the US and throughout the world. And those of you who are from other parts of the world, you are doing great work. I know there are at least 20 different institutes represented here in the audience you are coming from. And feel free to reach out to us. Let's work together. So now I know there are many questions coming. So I will first read few of these questions to you, Vamdev, and then there'll be more coming. So first question is coming from, I have to expand it. There's no name. What is your prediction for the American lifestyle and the effect it has on health? How can we start to help ourselves? Imagine different interventions are required for different age groups. So I'll go offline and read out the questions going forward. So Vamdev.
Yes. Well, this is a new American lifestyle. And of course, this is happening all over the world. We can also see the generational effects, how it's happening to the very young people. Their children now at a very young age are going directly to the cell phone. And there, in fact, our society today has had I would say, a drug epidemic. And we have the kind of 3 levels of the drugs that I like to talk about. One, we have the increased usage of recreational drugs, which includes intoxicants of various types. And of course, variety of drugs from cannabis to more addictive type of drugs to psychedelic drugs. I'm not saying that these things may not have some value, but there is a very definite movement in that direction there. And even more so, we have the movement towards all the medicinal and pharmaceutical drugs. Seniors are taking 10 to 15 medications a day. 30% of the children are taking some sort of pharmaceutical medication for something, allergies, attention issues, so that our medicine is drug-based. And then we have the drug of choice, so what I call the digital drug, which people are getting progressively addicted to, which is also causing side effects of depression. And the American lifestyle then having the more outwardness, entertainment, stimulation. So what's happening is this, again, loss of contact with our inner being. Of course, we do have a lot of sports and recreation going on, but even there, it's often more about what it's doing for us, or it's about the equipment, than it's about our realignment with nature. So it's very important that American lifestyle is brought into question, and we bring out the positive sides of it, the movement towards natural healing, exercise and yoga, going out into nature. Natural foods, natural food stores, use of herbs. America has probably greatest access to herbs of any country in the Western world. So there are positive things there. But the fact is, we cannot let ourselves be driven by the technology, and we cannot let our society be governed by technocrats. We need to look to spiritual masters, gurus, and guides. We need to return to meditation. We need to learn how to create prana within us. We need to learn how to create power of attention within us. The most important thing you have in life is your own power of attention, your own ability to sustain awareness. If you don't have that, anybody can take over your mind. If you do have that, you are able to discern the influences around you. We're in a world filled with advertising, propaganda, fake news, we know, so many different things. So we need to cultivate the yoga and the meditation so we can discern our way through these influences so that we can use our technology in a positive way and learn how to turn it off. And we shouldn't simply follow the American lifestyle, all of its changeability. We must honor our nature, our prakriti, the nature of our body, the nature of our mind, the nature of our soul, the nature of our environment, and try to respect all aspects of nature and try to preserve all the cultures of humanity. Technology is, of course, undermining a lot of native cultures and other things. That's another issue. But let's go back to that greater natural and universal approach, and let's go beyond what is negative in the new technology and use it in the positive direction. I hope that answers your question. Namaste.
And thank you, Vamadevaji. There are many questions. So I know the session is scheduled for 90 minutes, and I hope if it goes beyond, Vamadevaji, you will be able to stay some extra minutes if it is necessary to answer many other questions. Next question comes from Dr. Manoj Bhasin, who's a well-known geneticist at Harvard Medical School and our board member as well at Boston Center. His question is, what do you think major steps or path to make Ayurveda as part of mainstream medicine?
Yes. Well, making Ayurveda mainstream and getting Ayurveda legalized has been a big issue. There are organizations like NAMA, the National Ayurvedic Medical Association. In fact, April 26th to 28th, we are having our national meeting conference in the San Francisco Bay Area, actually outside of Santa Cruz. The theme is Ayurveda and the Mind, and also the Ayurvedic counseling. So that's going on. We also find, for example, we find Ayurvedic products and Ayurvedic factors are much more available, Ayurvedic treatment, but we need a greater alignment of American Ayurveda with Ayurveda in India, with Ayush, and we need a greater communication with other forms of medicine. Ayurveda still has to do a lot of work, both in the Ayurvedic community and reaching out. More research needs to be done and more support. We need support from the community because a lot of the Ayurvedic community itself doesn't have a lot of resources, connections with medical groups and so forth. I have seen Ayurveda grow phenomenally, but there is still much more that needs to be done. And we welcome greater communication and greater sharing. I don't have a magic pill, but I do say that at least by documenting how Ayurveda is changing people's lives is very important. And at each state level for yoga and Ayurveda people to try to bring the relevance of yoga and Ayurveda as a healing therapy to be recognized in the state, if not at a legal level. We have many states where Ayurveda can be used as part of the health freedom law or as part of natural healing. So much work needs to be done, but more study, more application, more practice is always the way. Namaste.
Thank you. I'm going to the next question, coming in order, actually. So next question comes from Dr. Purnima, who is in Boston, is a physician and also a surgeon who introduced robots in surgery first time in her practice. She has a question. She's also our board member. Thank you for an excellent overview. Do you recommend a specific guide which can help people get started in understanding and incorporating the rather vast knowledge in yoga and Ayurveda? Any specific guide that where people can get started?
Well, of course, there are books. I, of course, wrote a book on yoga and Ayurveda. I've had so many books on Ayurveda, Ayurveda in the mind, Ayurvedic healing. Dr. Vasant Lad has produced also extraordinary literature of books and textbooks on Ayurveda. So we have a number of authors in the field. Dr. John Duyard has done some excellent work there as well. I won't have the time or won't be on my memory to list all the books, but that literature is there. And much of it is expanded to the internet via classes or via conferences or via available videos and audios that way. And various Ayurvedic conferences, workshops, and classes are going on. And there are Ayurvedic centers in most communities. And there are also, of course, yoga centers everywhere. And we do recommend as much as possible to see an actual Ayurvedic practitioner to start off with basic lifestyle recommendations and to bit by bit bring Ayurveda into your life. It's an Ayurveda life. Life changes are incremental. Try to do something that improves your health every day or every week or every month. You can't do everything all at once. But to change things every day, we can ultimately change our nature. We need more conferences like the Kanchan has organized in the past. We need more dialogue. We need more research. And we need more recognition of different medical models and different models of the human being. Then I think that there will be a renaissance that can go on in terms of the whole healing and consciousness movement. But it does require work and dedication. And of course, we do need to bring in more Ayurvedic products and practices and make Ayurveda recognized and its efficacy honored. Namaste.
Next question is coming from Ravi. It's a very specific question, actually, relating to garlic and onion. So his question is, what is the role of garlic and onion? There is conflicting information. They are supposed to be Rajasic and Tamasic, but supposed to be good to control hypertension and plethora of other benefits.
Well, first of all, they are traditionally regarded as having some Rajasic and Tamasic qualities, but I can say there are thousands of things that are much more Rajasic and Tamasic than simply the garlic and onions. Now, garlic in Ayurveda also has very specific therapeutic properties. It is very good for reducing Vata dosha. It can also be a rasayana or rejuvenative for Kapha dosha. It is very good for a lot of respiratory, circulatory, other problems. So the medicinal use of garlic is not contrary to the view of garlic and onions in yoga and certain groups in yoga that they're not being sattvic. Onions are, of course, less powerful and less rajasic, tamasic than garlic, but there are some groups that would say don't take the garlic or the onions if you want to meditate and so forth like that. I think these are more specific or minor issues, but I think for certain disciplines, if these are recommended, then you can follow them. But there are many things that are much more important. For example, people may avoid garlic, but they may take too much sweet or too many other dietary indiscretions, soft drinks. There's so many things that can go on there. Or they may not take the onions. They may take too much of other hot spices or other factors. So it's best to look at an overall dietary view. Personally, I don't like garlic and I try to avoid it when I can, but we do recommend it medicinally at times. Onions are hard to avoid. As a vegetarian, if you want to eat out, I try to avoid them too much, but sometimes, you know, they get here and there. So we don't have to be dietary fanatics, but we do have to recognize the properties of things, and we have to examine our lifestyle as a whole. And here there's a lot of other food issues that come in as well. Namaste. Hello?
Next question. Someone asked the same question again. How can we learn online and offline? So I'm skipping that question. Pratibha Shah in Boston, working closely with us here from Council of Ayurvedic Research and other good work she's doing here. Thanks to BoCE for this wonderful session. Grateful to Dr. Frawley for sharing his vision. I have met Dr. Frawley several times. I think he's ahead of time in his vision. My question is, how do we practically bring the wholesome approach in current healthcare? It seems like a tall order with obvious challenges.
Yes, and the more obvious challenges, of course, relative to the treatment of severe diseases. And here, that can only occur if the medical establishment is willing to bring in some Ayurvedic points of view or learn some Ayurveda or bring in some yoga. We see this happening. To some degree, yoga is brought in as an adjunct therapy because yoga is fairly intrusive and non-invasive, particularly as asana, but even to some extent with pranayama. And of course, meditation is also being brought in. Sometimes we talk about yoga and meditation, meaning asana and meditation. And as I said earlier, yoga is actually meditation as its primary practice, but we're just dealing with the common way these words are used. So bringing these practices in is important. The complication Ayurveda brings in is it recommends dietary changes. It brings in certain herbs and pharmaceutical preparations. And it then has an internal medicine aspect, and it also has a diagnosis and recommendations and a differentiational diagnosis. Chinese medicine has this to some degree also, that in modern medicine, we treat a disease, diabetes, hypertension. And here I would like to say that there's no such thing as a disease apart from a person, whether it's hypertension, diabetes, or hepatitis, anything. These diseases do not exist in themselves. They are dysfunctions of a living person. Yoga and Ayurveda, we emphasize treating the person, and the same disease can have different manifestations in different energetic types of people. And so we don't necessarily have the same treatment for one disease. And modern medicine is emphasizing basically a chemical therapy for the specific disease, whereas Ayurveda is recommending herbal and dietary factors along with lifestyle changes and yoga changes, so that the medicine is only part of a broader approach. This has to be understood. So testing that becomes difficult. So the medical establishment has to be willing to be open to these views and be willing to explore some of at least the behavioral changes and lifestyle modifications that yoga and Ayurveda can recognize, and then also explore some of the herbs, the oils, the massage, the panchakarma, and these relevant therapies as well. And at least recognize that there is something there. Ayurveda is recognized by the World Health Organization. It's recognized in a number of countries now, including extending into the UAE as well as into Southeast Asia and India, all of that. So there is much that can be done, but there needs to be a recognition and honoring of Ayurveda as a whole, not just pulling out an Ayurvedic herb or an Ayurvedic practice, which is important. And even yoga, pranayama is being now recognized, but then they're pulling pranayama out of the system of yoga. We have to also recognize the philosophy and the energetics behind that. So I know that's a big question. I hope I've given you a few helpful indications here today. Namaste.
Thank you. Next question came all the way from Ujjain, India. Chaitanya Talagaonkar, I hope I said it right. Hello, how Ayurveda can help in transformation of internal energies for better health and peace and meditation.
How Ayurveda can help with internal
energies for better health and peace.
Better health and meditation. Well, first of all, I just want to tell you I was just in Ujjain, and we also went to Mahakal. And have been to Ujjain. We went to the Kumbh Mela there a few years ago. Ujjain is one of our favorite places. Mahakal is one of the great Jyotirlingas of Lord Shiva. And it's the basis, it's the central point of the Vedic astronomy and the Jyotish by way of calculations, and a wonderful ancient place. So I always like to hear from people from Ujjain. It was also called Avantika in ancient times. Ayurveda, first of all, we kind of, in a way, work from the outside to the inside, balancing the doshas of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. First of all, recognizing our constitutional base, and then also recognizing the vikriti or the imbalances that may be going on, but then also recognize that these doshic factors connect to higher internal forces, Kapha and this power of ojas, which we mentioned as physical and psychological immunity. Pitta dosha and a higher power of tejas, the inner radiance, warmth, vital aspect of the fire energy. And Vata dosha as prana, pranic energy, not just simply as the breath, not just simply as the vital force in the body, but as the energy of life and consciousness that pervades the mind and pervades the world of nature. So there are these higher forces. Then we also have, through the kapha dosha and the ojas, we have the idea of soma, or the rejuvenative forces of awareness, inner powers of happiness, contentment, including brain secretions of contentment and well-being, but extending to inner connections to the ananda, the bliss, the powerful contentment energy that actually pervades the entire universe. Pitta, Tejas, and the Agni forces. Agni not just as the digestive fire, there's the pranic fire, there's the fire of the mind, there's ultimately the fire, the flame of consciousness itself, accessing these universal forces of light and fire and transformation. And prana and the cosmic vayu. Vayu is the Kriya Shakti, the great energy that operates at a cosmic level, whether it's gravitational forces, electrical forces, subatomic forces. There's a cosmic intelligence and cosmic energy behind that. So these forces, prana, tejas, ojas, and this whole soma, agni, vayu, are also internal energies. They're connected to the chakra energies within us. They're connected also to the 5 elements. So there are practices for awakening the higher agnis, for getting the higher somas to flow, to strengthen the ojas. I have an entire book on soma and yoga and Ayurveda. We also have, I have an entire book on yoga and the sacred fire. So and the various yogic texts and yoga teachers can teach us the yoga agni, cultivating the yoga, the agni of the yoga. A lot of the tantric teachings show us this kundalini shakti is a form of pranagni or yogic agni. Mantric forces can put these together. So that takes us into the study of mantra, tantra, yantra, meditational practices, and higher yoga practices through hatha yoga and raja yoga. And there are also specific texts and gurus that work with these. And these should also then be aligned with the balancing of the vata, pitta, kapha energies outwardly. And of course, also increasing the energy of the sattva guna within. So I know it sounds very complicated, but these triple forces work on different levels. And by learning to work with them inside of ourselves, we can access the universe within us as vast as the universe on the outside. Namaste.
Namaste. Next question is from Leah Jones. How effective is an herbal protocol with patients who take pharmaceutical drugs for the mind and for physical ailments?
Okay. That is, of course, the question of herbal medicine,
yes,
the efficacy of herbal medicine, and how the herbal medicine may interact or conflict if someone is taking the pharmaceutical medicines.
Yes.
First of all, I just want to reiterate that Ayurveda has extraordinary herbal preparations. For example, the Ayurvedic, what you call massage oils, are actually herbal oils that have their own therapeutic value and may have as many as 20 different herbs prepared or cooked in them to be absorbed directly into the skin, into the bones, the joints, and even into the brain. Ayurveda has a tremendous amount of very powerful herbs and medicines for the mind and the nervous system. We have the Brahmi, the Mandukaparni, the Jatamansi, the Vacha or the Kalamas, Ashwagandha, Shatavari, many rasayanas, for Medhya rasayanas for the mind, and also rasayanas for the body. Something like Brahmi ghee, Brahmi prepared in ghee, very powerful for the mind, meditation, dealing with stress. Shankapushpi, the syrup of Shankapushpi. So there are many, many things that are there that we don't have, of course, the time to go into all of that. But I want you to be aware that wealth of herbal preparations is there on various levels, factors like Chavanprash, Brahma Rasayana, Ashwagandha layam, that are sweet things that you can eat, and all of that. These are there. Now, we do have to be careful about interaction of herbs with drugs, although we have also a lot of the Ayurvedic herbs are classified as to whether they're very mild or long-term in their usages, or whether they have stronger effects. In fact, a lot of drugs came out of Ayurvedic medicines like opium or sarpagandha or cannabis and so forth, which have been used in traditional Ayurveda quite a lot. So it depends upon each case. There are many herbs that are safe for daily usage, and anti-stress herbs also there. And generally another rule is to start with a fairly low dosage, and to have some dialogue of the herbalist or the Ayurvedic doctor along with the medical doctor, and even with the yoga teachers, you know, pranayama and other practices, asana, can also serve to change the brain chemistry, reduce stress, reduce hypertension, and so forth. So we need not be afraid. Some caution needs to be used. Generally speaking, the side effect of herbs are less. There are some like ephedra that have a little bit more depending upon what you may take. But so far we find very few, almost no, very few examples of people being poisoned by herbs. There are very rare cases. Herbs are medicines, need to be done carefully, but at the same time, if we use them with discretion, then they are safe. And even foods taken in excesses in the wrong way can also cause a lot of health issues. We have to understand they're energetic as well as their chemical approaches. Namaste.
Namaste. Shubhangi Mot from India has a question, and it can be taken offline, but I just want to read it. I'm a certified Ayurvedic doctor in India, also doing fellowship in Ayurvedic dietetics. Can I join your center to learn more? So how can from India she can join?
Yes. Well, first of all, there's a much more Ayurveda available in India than there is in the United States. And a lot of what we teach in the West is the basics of Ayurveda for people. People here do not have access to the clinical practices, or the clinical knowledge, or all the pharmaceutical preparations. And the Ayurvedic treatment of severe diseases is harder to do because you have to deal with the legalities and the constraints of the medical system as it is today. So there are, generally speaking, better places to study Ayurveda in India than there are in the United States. And we always recommend, we have various places in India that we recommend for the studying of Ayurveda. One of our friends in Delhi, Pratap Chauhan, in his Jiva Ayurveda, is doing very good work, not only spreading Ayurveda, but bringing in, creating more jobs for Ayurvedic practitioners and the telemedicine. We also see now that the Patanjali Ayurveda is the largest corporation in India today, and they have a lot of adaptations. There are many Ayurvedic schools and organizations. Relative to Ayurveda in the West, sometimes what we can help people in India with is a better way of expressing or teaching Ayurveda, Ayurvedic aspects of psychology and counseling, yogic aspects via meditation. So there are some things that yoga and Ayurvedic people from the West can contribute by way of communication and by way of ease of practice. In the work that I'm doing, we have a very broad Vedic center, but it's at an educational and an online basis because our outreach is global. And our work is promoting the integration of yoga, Ayurveda, Jyotish, Vedanta under the broader view of what we call Vedic counseling and Vedic knowledge. For people who want to do more clinical Ayurveda, we recommend them out to other places to do that. We are not specifically hiring people here, but we do encourage people to take up the practice of yoga and Ayurveda at various levels. We also have some interaction via Ayush, of course, the ministry there. So there's a great future for yoga and Ayurveda, whether in India or relative to the West, and it's best to start working with what you can, where you are, and expanding that. But Ayurveda in India does need to bring about a more greater communication. Sometimes it's applied mechanically, just giving people an Ayurvedic medication rather than discussing their behavior, lifestyle, diet. So the wellness aspect and the counseling aspect of Ayurveda needs to be brought into the Indian context as well. Modern Ayurveda kind of kept out the psychological and spiritual aspect and emphasized more as a physical therapy, but the psychological and spiritual aspects are coming in, and we can still find various great masters and teachers doing that in India today. Namaste.
Namaste. Very important question came from Sue ML. What would be some good parenting practices that would build skillful strengths in children to be invulnerable to the use of drugs and other interferences, especially applicable US?
That's a very important question, and dealing with children. And I'm always a person that I like to go by some sort of track record. And I have to say that in terms of working with children, I haven't done a lot of that myself. So I don't want to kind of go beyond my limits of experience, but there are certain things that are very simple. One, we have to bring children out into nature quite a bit. The mind to grow needs space. Children need to be taught to relate to and communicate to the plants, the animals, and the forces of nature. They need to learn to identify the plants and their properties, and not just simply a botany class, but even bringing yoga, meditation, retreats into nature are very important to do. Obviously, bringing asana into the children's exercise. Obviously, children have a greater flexibility when they're younger. At the same time, they need to move. So they also need to do more active forms of exercise, running, moving, all of that. And yet the asana should be brought in as well. And they should be learned to talk, to cultivate stillness. And there should be the management of time. Children should, again, in the morning and in the evening, they should be taken off of the media. They should be given interaction with other children in terms of playing outdoors, imaginative games, not simply computer games, creative activities using sensory factors, whether it's colors, musical instruments, not just simply choosing what to play on your iPhone or whatever collection of music that you have, emphasizing art, creativity in different forms, not trying to raise the children too quickly, let them be children, not making children having them spend so much time with adults they think they're an adult. And this idea of just having one child, even if you have one child, the children have to interact with other children, not simply to grow up around adults, and more creative games and activities. And of course, the big problem is it's easy for children, for anyone, to get addicted to the digital factors. So there has to be something in life more stimulating for them, whether it is a sports, whether it is an art, whether it is something they do with their hands, whether it's something that requires more direct input. Still emphasize reading of books, emphasize cultivation of memory. It's not just enough to put it in the memory bank of your computer. You need to learn to memorize. Learn some mantra and chanting for the children. It's very helpful for improving the brain. Some practices in concentration and meditation, learning to have the mind empty, learning to hold the focus, whether it's on a mantra or a yantra or on a plant or on a tree or on the sky. Perceptual exercises, taking them out to see under the stars, identify the stars, all of that, so much. So I will just kind of end that there. It could go on for an entire talk of its own. Namaste.
Namaste. As we have noted earlier, Boston Center is working with both institutes and researchers, both in modern medicine as well as yoga and Ayurveda and other traditional systems. This question comes from a medical doctor from All India Institute of Medical Sciences, AIIMS in Delhi, and he's doing postdoc in neuroscience at Harvard, Dr. Anand Venkataraman. His question is, I'm interested in neurological investigation of mantras. Can you give us some guidance for how best to scientifically investigate how mantras might work?
Yes, the neurological investigation of mantras. And here I must also say that I have never worked as a research scientist on any medical issue. So I must let you know of my limitations there. I am aware of work on brain waves. I am aware of some of these neurological ideas. And in my book on the Soma in Yoga and Ayurveda, I just like to draw the connection, particularly to this concept of Tarpa Kapha in Ayurveda. There are 5 subforms of Kapha dosha. And this is what governs the secretion in the brain. Tarpak means what gives tripti or contentment. And seeing how we can change brain chemistry, not only with mantra, but with all the yoga practices, particularly pranayama, mantra, and meditation. And there is a classification. I also have a book on the mantra yoga and primal sound, where mantras are also classified as Agni or Soma, or their applications are Agni and Soma. They have maybe heating or cooling properties. There's also, if you go into the tantric system, you have, of course, the idea of the Sahasrar, or the 1,000-petal lotus of the head. This transcends the physical brain, but it is connected to it. And a lot of the practices and mantras for the powers and forces working relative to the Sahasrar are also going to be strongly affecting the brain chemistry. We have, of course, Sundari mantras, the Aim, Hrim, Klim, Saha, Hrim, Shrim, Klim, Aim, Saha. Panchadashi mantras, I mean, these are special things you need to study in a certain context. There are studies of how mantra and meditation does help the brain. There are also studies of how Sanskrit does help the brain. I just think more of these need to be done. And it's important also to have them done with students or people who have developed something of a sattvic living, so that the effects of the neurological study can go on. Of course, you can also work with that with diseased people. And I should also mention that the Medhya rasayanas and the Ayurvedic oils that affect the mind, for example, Chandanadi, which is sandalwood based, ones that are given to the head, Kshirabala, Balashwagandha. There's also research that can be done there, Shirodhara and so forth. We can affect the neurology. Now, but also Ayurveda teaches us that we have deeper aspects of mind and consciousness more subtle than the physical body. In fact, if we can just simply bring stillness to the mind, that brings contentment and a flow of positive energies to the brain also. So there are many, many things that can be done here, but it is important to document these in scientific studies so that the world community as a whole can embrace them. But taking a few key bija mantras and working that way, I think it can be a very good way of showing how the brain can be affected by mind and meditation. Namaste.
Dr. Venkataraman, your work is cut out now. So you know what work you can do, and always you will be able to get guidance from Vamadevaji. I know we have crossed the 90 minutes boundary, but if Vamdevaji is not going to be too late for anything, we can continue for another 10 minutes. So we have many more questions, and unfortunately we won't be able to get to all of them. I'm just picking, some of you have asked multiple questions, but I will have limited time, so we will skip some of them. Our very well-known cardiologist from New York, Dr. Narendra Valodkar, he has a beautiful question, and he has many questions, but I'll pick the first one for now. Dr. Frawley, excellent comprehensive talk. With so many yoga centers and studios, are they studios around us? Are they practicing mainly physical aspects rather than comprehensive yoga, which should include meditation? So his question is, just physical aspect like asanas is known as yoga, but it's beyond that. So what is your thought that these studios should take a meditation as a?
Yes, this is an important issue, and we've always said we must expand the field of yogic education. And you know, a lot of the yogic centers are studying Yoga Sutras, but Yoga Sutras doesn't address really asana much at all. It addresses mind and consciousness and meditation. So the yoga teacher should learn basics of Ayurveda, but they should also learn texts like Yoga Sutras, basics of Vedanta, Bhagavad Gita. We need to broaden the idea of yogic education. Now, of course, there's plenty of room for people who can learn yoga as asana for exercise. And yoga teachers have to teach what is allowed in their particular job. If they're in a place where they're hired to teach the asana, then that is what they do. But even in that context, their asana can be oriented towards stillness. In fact, the real purpose of asana is to help us detach from body consciousness, bring stillness into the body, so we can move into pranayama and meditation. So yoga centers should then develop bit by bit. They should bring in a knowledge of prana into the teachings. We notice that a number of yoga centers are bringing in some kirtan and mantra, which is very important. But they should also recognize, you know, now there's also a mindfulness movement. They should also recognize that mindfulness is the essence of yoga as the cultivation of awareness. Dhyana and samadhi are the main focus of classical yoga and meditation. So there should be a greater mergence of the teaching of the asana and the teaching of meditation. And meditation needs to be taught more widely. And yogic forms of meditation and Vedantic forms of meditation need to be out there. Yogic forms involve, of course, the witness consciousness, observation. They also involve devotional forms, mantra meditation, concentration, all the chakras, all these things. So there needs to be more explanation of that. But we do see there are a number of yoga people studying these things, and they need to expand, and we need to discern someone who is an asana teacher from someone who is a comprehensive or integral or yoga teacher in the broader sense of the term. And I find that the more we bring deeper teachings in, the more we expand the teachings, then the more we raise the level of what is being taught. Namaste.
Thank you. And that actually also connects to a question came from Young Thaker, very similar question, how can it be more comprehensive? So you already have answered that. Next question is coming from Mrs. Rekha Singh. She's originated from Jawaharlal Nehru University in Delhi and currently in Boston. Her question is, I want to know anti-inflammatory herbs and fruits and vegetables that we can use as anti-inflammatory substance.
Well, you know, again, Ayurveda has so many things, and it also likes to look at things by the different doshas involved and by the different constitutional types involved. So we have quite a variety of things that we can recommend on these different types of basis. One of the things that we use for very deep-seated inflammatory problems and also deep-seated fevers is the guduchi, the amrit. But the fact is there are so many things that can be done. We have a whole set of Ayurvedic oils that are used for different purposes, particularly the anti-pitta oils that are there, the Chirabala, or Asana Manjishtadi, Manjishta as an herb. We have a lot of the herbs and medicine for cleansing the blood. We have a lot of the beetles that can work here. And we have a whole set of dietary applications, fruit, vegetables. There's so many things. You're kind of asking a very general question for something that really should be applied more specifically towards particular problems. What I should say is, in terms of arthritis, Ayurveda has very, very significant benefits through its herbal practices, its oils, its anti-rheumatic formulas, and its panchakarma treatments. And for chronic fevers and infections, even the amla, it has a lot of the, I said, guduchi, kushta. There's a lot of these things that are also there. This is kind of a very broad aspect, but a very important part of medicine that we need to bring into. and then differentiating the various aspects of Ayurveda that will fall under various inflammatory conditions and their treatment. Namaste.
Namaste. Question came from someone. What would be your suggestion for enhancing memory using mantra and herbs?
Yes, memory. Well, first of all, memory is of different types. Actually, a lot of us, to cultivate memory, the first thing we need to do is learn how to forget. Our minds are cluttered with useless memories, which are emotional memories, insults, fears, gossip, worry, envy, jealousy. All these movements disturb the mind. Then we also need to cultivate a control of the senses, dharana, trataka, being able to hold, to listen deeply, to be one pointed in our gaze. We need that control of the senses also. And then for cultivating memory directly, we also need to avoid focusing the mind on trivial, superficial things. Question our own thoughts. If you find a thought in your mind, a silly thought, you ask why it is there. What purpose does it serve? What is it doing for you? Most of us are more aware of what's going on outside of us than what's going on in our own minds. So we're letting our minds fill with junk, trivia, gossip, worry, sensation, entertainment, and such a cluttered mind cannot memorize, and it can also not have attention. So cultivating memory, cultivating attention go together. Mantra chanting, doing a mantra starting 108 times, doing a whole sadhana of the mantra, doing it up to 100,000 times. These are things that can be done. Other simple factors, mantra with the breath, awareness of the breath, cultivating mindfulness on various ways, being attentive, being able to sit silently, and avoiding for some time any external stimuli, going outside into nature, focusing, meditating on a tree, a flower. There's so many exercises you can do to improve memory and attention, but you have to get rid of inattention and get rid of the clutter of the memory and have a purpose in life. Do something meaningful with your life. Have some sort of ideal or aspiration or sadhana. Sadhana is the best way for developing the mind and awareness, but it requires some inner spiritual dedication and guidance. But whatever you do consistently every day gains a power. So cultivate your mind, exercise your mind. Don't just exercise the body. Develop flexibility of mind. Don't just be caught in one point of view only. Don't just have flexibility of the body. Develop strength of mind, which means power of attention. Read a book straight through with attention. Give attention to what you do. There are many things you can do, but I still say mantra is the simplest and most direct way. Namaste.
And towards that, do you recommend any specific mantras, both for stilling your mind and also for improvement of memory? Any specific mantras you would recommend?
Mantra is a whole science in itself, like herbs. You can always do the mantra of your Ishta Devata, the form of the divine that you follow. There are also mantras, Ganesh mantras, Saraswati mantras that are more concerned with learning overall. There are other specific bija mantras, the mantra Aim, the Saraswati bija for the power of awareness, attention. There are many others. I've discussed the bijas and other mantras in the book. Of course, there's the important Gayatri mantra. That's all about, it's a sukta. I mean, it's from a Vedic sukta. It's 24 syllables, but the Gayatri mantra is about awakening and developing that power of attention, awareness, intelligence. Like we say, Gayatri mantra is bringing solar energy into the mind. Whenever you become lose your power of attention, whenever you become distracted, dull, or weak energy in the mind, you do the Gayatri mantra to draw that solar power into the mind, so that the power of attention in the mind, meditating on Agni, the focus, the Trataka, many things you can do, but these mantras are more specific for that purpose.
Thank you. We are getting, again, we're still getting more questions. Sorry. We'll stick to the last two questions and end it. So the next question came from Ravindra Jaishankar from Colorado. His question is, can you please expand on the energies of meat-based diet as opposed to vegetarian diet, specifically responding to critics of vegetarian diet by meat eaters, one being lack of fat, soluble vitamins, vitamin D, B12, etc. Thank you.
Yes, but actually these have been addressed in many different books. Of course, we have many different diets out there, meat diet versus non-meat diet. And there's also the idea, of course, you have to understand that most of Ayurvedic yoga also does use dairy products. And there are also the vegans who don't use dairy products. So there are other issues there. In terms of protein, even a vegan diet, obviously there are all the dals, there are many sources, the beans, there are many sources of protein that are out there in the vegan diet, and the vegetarian diet, that is lacto-vegetarian diet, that are well known, and even these B vitamins and the dairy part of the diet. But there are also a number of the fresh plants. I can't say I'm going to be able to give you a list of exactly what has vitamin B12 and what has this other vitamin in it, but you can certainly find these in books, that these things are available. One point I would also like to make is that you cannot get all your vitamins simply by taking supplements. The vitamins do best is if coming from the food or coming from food-based supplements, and there is quite a bit of information about this. What we have to understand about the meat diet, and you have to understand that Ayurveda doesn't say that everybody has to be a vegetarian. Vegetarian is recommended for certain spiritual purposes and for certain sadhanas and practices, but Ayurveda also addresses the health needs of everyone. And what Ayurveda does say is that the red meat, we know, is heavy, hard to digest, blocks the channels. And so we should eat less of the meat. It's not a food necessity. And particularly today, when we have so many other necessities, there are, for example, people in Tibet and people in the Himalayas, they're eating goats and these things. I mean, they don't have the choices, and they come from a certain climate. But here we have now throughout the world the options of the vegetarian diet. So, and of course, the influence of the meat diet on the ecology is well known. And on the constitutional types, it's more aggravating for kapha and pitta. Vata dosha people sometimes feel grounded when they have more meat in their diet, but there are also other ways of achieving that groundedness in the vegetarian diet overall. And I do know many people who take meat occasionally. I don't think we need to kind of morally stereotype or criticize people for simply at a dietary level, but I think we do need to lower the level of meat consumption in terms of health benefits and also for planetary benefits. And also, if you want to be a vegan, make sure to be a conscious one in which you have you're not just living off raw foods. You have to have your whole grains, your beans, your dals, your other things. And in Ayurveda, we use a lot of dairy products, even in the medicines, like the different forms of ghee that are made. But in India, we emphasize using the Desi cow or the A1 milk, which you can begin to find here, and can be from the better cared dairy cows, and raising the standards in the dairy industry as well. These again are big topics, but that's just the quick answer. Namaste.
Namaste. I know we have crossed 2 hours now, and I knew that this was going to happen, knowing your knowledge, and people have so much interest to learn. So final question for today, coming from Anjali don't know the last name. Namaste. I have two questions, and these are connected. Please answer them from your own practice and not theoretically. Do you use certain herbs to enhance the higher pranic forces? That's one question. And then
Do I use what?
any
Do I
certain herbs you use to enhance the higher pranic forces? That's question number one. You can answer together. Then a second question is, when one reaches at certain stage of their yoga practice, how do you protect that knowledge yourself from they are in the receptor phase?
I don't understand what's meant there.
Yeah, that so negative. So basically, how do you protect and shield yourself from negative energy?
Negative influence.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Okay. Now, in terms of herbs, I do use a number of Ayurvedic herbs as part of my lifestyle. And I do use the Medhya Rasayanas, whether it's something as simple as Brahmi ghee or Brahma Rasayana, or more complex formulations. There are also various pills and powders that are using Brahmi, or they're using even sometimes some of the Moti Basma. I'm not going to go into all of these. And I also use the Ayurvedic oils. As I said, mentioned something like Shirabala or Chandanadi, these for internal usage. We also have the Vartis, or the enhanced oils, that may be 3 times, 21 times, 101 times. These are very good usage internally as well. I do use some of these also, ashwagandha layam and some of these other preparations. It depends on where I am and what I'm doing and what I have access to, Nasya oils also. So that is there. Now, relative to protection, first of all, you should have your meditation room, your puja room, your sadhana room. Create a sacred space there. When you're doing your practices, you also use your puja items, including the ghee lamps, the diyas, and the incense, and the flowers, and the aromas, and the Ganga water, and all these other things, and all the different murtis and shivalings and things that you have. And there are, of course, certain protective deities like Durga. There are mantras for the different deities. Lord Shiva that way, Ram that way. Question of Ishta Devata comes up there quite a bit. But we do have to protect ourselves. And when we go out in public places, we should also be aware that we're not just moving in public, we're moving in a certain pranic and mental field that can be toxic in various ways. So we need to be aware of where we're going, what we're doing, who we're relating to. We have to practice the satsang at various levels. At the same time, we need not be afraid, but we should have some protective deity or protective mantra that we use and that we call upon. And I didn't have time to address the Jyotish or the Vedic astrology, but there are certain times where we have vulnerability, and there are also certain times that are more auspicious for practices, eclipses, different things like that. So we need to be aware of some of the muhurta information on a daily level where there may be some more vulnerability. And then we need to know how to ground our awareness and ground our prana as needed. But if we have a harmonious dharmic lifestyle, a lot of that will be taken care of along with the sadhana and protective mantras when we may be exposed to negative energies. Namaste.
Namaste. That was the last question we have taken. Those we could not take up. Sorry about that, and maybe in another session. I would request Vamadevaji to make a quick final remarks in terms of where Yoga and Ayurveda is going in terms of civilization, lull, healing, and what each one of us can do. Just quick remarks and close this session.
Yes. Yes, well, yoga and Ayurveda, I think, are essential for the coming century to help us deal with the technology, to help us connect to the cosmic mind, to help us develop a science of consciousness, to balance our outer or material sciences, to help us bring into medicine a recognition of higher holistic forces like prana, like consciousness, and also the prana in nature, divine forces at the various levels. These are extremely important, and we must do what we can, each one of us, first of all, in our own lifestyle and our own sadhana. Secondly, if we can bring this into a relationship, communication, work, and education, and bringing in these higher values and educating people as to what they are, I think it's a tremendous work that we all need to do. And those of us who are also trained in science and modern medicine, making a bridge and showing the relevance and the unique application of these different factors involved. So thank you all for your endurance through this long set of thoughts and discussions today. I hope it is of some value for you, but please take within whatever resonates with you, cultivate it like a seed, and continue to grow your inner garden with higher pranic, mantric, and meditational energies. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Namaste. And to connect with you, people can visit www.vedanet.com, vedanet.com. He has all the contact information if you want to directly be in touch with Vamadevaji. Is there any other, is that the right website, Vamadevaji? Or?
That's the right website. You can also just Google me. We also have a we also have social media, and we have many books, and we also you'll find lots of videos of me available here and there. So if you just go up there and see what interests you, what resonates with you, but do try to pick up some of the books. And we have all of our books are also available online in Kindle editions, and we have online courses. So we try to make ourselves user-friendly in the information technology area. And thank you also, Kanchan, for organizing this. Your dedication to this Vedic knowledge and all the Dharmic causes is very noteworthy. And we hope that more people support you and join your cause because it's very essential for the future of humanity. Thank you again. Namaskar.
Thank you. Namaste. And this session is available. We have recorded it, and we will send you the link, all the participants, and you can spread the news with your friends also. Thank you again.
Yes.
Have a great
We
day.
will do.
Yes.